Kelty. I met him a couple of years ago, and 1 year ago, 2 years ago. We are not only friends, we're also co-workers. Kenneth works with me at the Arc of the Triangle and provides important help to our office. I'm looking at one of the main persons who he helps, who we didn't have that help before, and he really streamlined our business and helps tremendously in our office with some clerical work as he's able. His bio is in your handout, and I'll let you read that, but I want to tell you a couple other interesting things that didn't make it on the bio. The first one is that in our office, he's known as he has the highest celebrity status. And it's not just kind of fun to say and kind of joke around, but it's actually true. A few months ago, the website came out with the top 60 people with autism to know during Autism Month. Among that list were Temple Grandin and several other well-known people, and Kenneth made the list in the top 60. It's awesome. He is a national public speaker, a motivational speaker, and has an awesome message about what it's like to live with and experience autism in his life. And he has a lot of really cool things to share. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Kenneth Kelty.
Please hold your questions till after the speaking. Welcome to the beautiful Blowing Rock area, and thank you to the APSI for inviting me to be your keynote speaker here today. So, I am originally from West Palm Beach, South Florida, and I've almost lived in the North Carolina area for 10 years. I am a recent graduate of the Western Carolina University Participants Program, and I will talk about that later, along with my experience as a LEND trainee at the wonderful UNC Chapel Hill area. So I do a lot of speaking, and recently I was actually published in the Carolina Institute for Developmental Disabilities newsletter. Now, I'm going to talk about speech difficulties. I've had speech therapy since I was 3 years old, and I had because when I was little, I could not move my tongue muscle, so I really couldn't talk. And part of what they did to help is they would put peanut butter on the roof of my mouth, which is part of why I don't like peanut butter. But even though I don't like peanut butter, I still love Reese's, and the kind of peanuts you can get as an appetizer. And they also use cereals and M&Ms. But even though I had years of speech therapy, I still have a hard time with certain sounds. When I try to say my mom's name, Saki, it comes out as Zaki, depending on how hard I try. And one time when I was very little, we were at a pizza place and I saw a fire truck coming. And I yelled out, and I said a bad word, which I would not say, which came out as the F word, but now I can say that a lot better. And if I ever want to try to order something at a restaurant, it comes out as an S-ace. I'm saying this so you know my speech pattern. I do have a hard time saying certain sounds. First, here are some milestones that prepared me for cause and self-determination. Back home in South Florida, I was a safety patrol. That's what the orange bells were. My classmates and we would make sure the students were safe and that there was no running in the hallway. And a big tradition is to take safety patrols to Washington, D.C. for a couple days during when it's winter up north, while it's hot in Florida. And even before the 5th grade, I knew that I wanted to go because I had friends who went on the trip and had a good time. And at first, the school was not going to allow me to go due to my autism and intellectual disability. But after some negotiation, I was able to go on that trip. And many of my friends from that time are still my friends today. And of course, when I was in high school, I was part of the Lake Worth Community High School Early Childhood Program. They had really good magnet programs. They included all at a young age, then to go to summer camps and after-school programs where I was included with my peers with disabilities really helped me grow and develop my self-determination. And many of the kids who I went to these programs with were also kids who I would go to school with and who would help me around. And I also did do some volunteer work at the Durham VA and in the community. And I was also part of the United Methodist Church of the Palm Beaches in South Florida, Bobby Homecoming. And up there, that is with my friend D.Z. Roberts, a small world experience. His mother was the original school psychologist who diagnosed me with autism when I was very little. And I first heard about her after my mom told me about her when she had done some research to know what she was up to today. And a year ago and 2 months, I emailed her to let her know how I was doing, since kept in touch. And when she heard I had to go to Atlanta, she told me about her son D.Z., who is also in school and will become a school psychologist. And the reason why she was very optimistic when diagnosing me. Before she diagnosed me, there was a psychiatrist who I will not name, but who was very pessimistic when diagnosing me, saying to have no high expectations and to never expect any language development. So that doctor I have contacted too. I am pretty good at being able to, I am pretty good on the internet. Was involvement in my IEP means in person-centered plan. You only know IEP stands for individualized educational plan, and at a young age, I went to my meetings with my mom, and that's how I was able to advocate for one and more responsibilities when no one thought I could handle them. And that helped prepare me, because when you go to a post-secondary ed program, you have person-centered plan meetings, very similar to an IEP, but it's not. But the circumstances are a little different since you're no longer in the school system. And at the beginning, I led a lot of my PCP meetings. My mom was still involved, but since Western Carolina and Raleigh are 5 hours apart, she would participate by phone or sometimes on Skype. And even your counselors sometimes would help participate, so they would know what I was up to. And all people with disabilities should be able to be involved in their meetings. I know not everyone may be able to handle them, but they should have a chance to participate and express their thoughts and opinions. Of course, my experience as a UP program, UP stands for University Participants Program, and this is a 2-year inclusion program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities to come and learn and live side by side by your peers. And it was started in 2007 by Dr. Kelly Kelly. And yes, you all heard correctly, her name is Kelly Kelly. That became her name when she married her high school sweetheart. That's how it became her last name. And we were known as the KKs because my last name is Kelty, and I've been known as Kelly before. And this all started when she was a graduate student, the now director of the UP program, Dr. Westland. He was talking about how programs were coming into being for students with disabilities, and she decided to raise her hand and said, well, we're talking about all these programs, so why don't we have one here? And my family and I first heard about this because in early February of 2012, she was doing some online research for college options and found out about the UP program. And she came home and said, how would you like to go to college? And at first I was like, is this really real? And so it was. And we were very lucky because the following month they had an open house where I was able to learn learn more about the campus and what the program was about. Then 2 months later, I was invited to spend a week in type of orientation as it would be for any other college student. Here are some histories from my experience at Western Carolina. This was my dorm. I lived in Norton my first semester. So it's pretty neat that I decorate my dorm. And while I was there, I had a suite mate who I also started a bathroom with, who was part of the UP program. And as you can see, I do love purple. Not just because it's Western Carolina's colors. It was my color before. And back here, these were with my Delta Sigma Phi fraternity brothers. This was at the Sea Mountain, a popular hangout spot where concerts and campus activities would happen. And right over there, that is Blue Earth, another upperclassman dorm, where the second year UP students got to stay at. And this is behind my dorm room in Northern Rainbow. Besides, WCU stands for Western Carolina University. It also stands for We Carry Umbrellas. We say that because it does rain a lot in the mountains, but we do have beautiful sunny days as well. Next picture. This was in front of the Ramsey Center, the basketball stadium, and that is where our orientation would happen, and that is where we would graduate. In my last 2 semesters, I was part of the student entourage where I would give tours to students who were thinking about coming to Western Carolina, and of course the students who were maybe not enrolled in UP. Class and academic supports in the UP program. I had an academic liaison, Dr. Ron. He had the same roles any other faculty advisor, any other student would have. And he would make sure that my classwork was going well and would help select the individualized classes that my peers and I were thinking about taking. I also did have in-class supports. This could be a student that was either affiliated with the UP program, or it could be a student that was in the class that never heard about the program. And we would not just meet outside of class for homework or assignments. They were also friends as well, and people who I'm still in contact with today. And after class, we would go on Blackboard, where you could find out about resources or links so you could do your classwork or get the PowerPoints. And then when I was a grad student at UNC, I did have a length class support where we would meet outside class. At UNC, we had Sakai, very similar to Blackboard, where there would be weekly discussions about how the class was going and about the cases that we were working on. And I had 2 good faculty advisors who would make sure that my goals were being met. Here was my schedule system while I was lesson. In order to be independent in a UP program, you had to prove that you could navigate the campus and have good time management. And before I had come to Western Carolina, the schedule system was so structured that everything had to be planned 2 weeks in advance. And not everyone always plans everything that far out in advance. So, after doing some social inclusion research with the UP program, I was able to tell them that the accessible system should be more flexible, and now the program is where you can make last-minute changes that are in reasons. If I got to go and I won a scholarship for a conference at the American Evaluation Association, competing against students that were in graduate school, masters of conference. Here is different work experience. These 6 different subs in 2 years weren't because the employers didn't like me. No. Just like any college student, any program, they wanted you to have different placements. And my last semester, I was at Susan's tax and accounting service. Semester 1, that's up there. I was a deputy local photographer, where I would take pictures of locals that were out of date and help them to get locals that were maybe updated. And down here, cross out to this. Oftentimes, people don't always want to focus on the fact that even though a person may have the label disability, doesn't mean they don't have any abilities. We all have something to contribute. Like, not everyone could be a mechanic. So we all need to go to help sometimes. And remember, just because you have a client in a work placement does not mean that has to be there forever, work placement. I love working for the Arc of the Triangle, and I like my coworkers, but I know there are other jobs I want to have in the future, and that's how it's to be for all people with disabilities, to grow just like anyone else. And even those who are maybe not on the high functioning level should still be able to work, because they can still contribute even if it's not the same. The classes I took my last semester, all of these were the same criminal justice or political. These were all the same classes that anyone in criminal justice or political science took. And these were classes that I chose. These weren't classes that every participant took, unless they wanted to. And all of my professors were very helpful and even offered to be references for future opportunities in like a legal firm or for future schooling. Here were clubs and organizations that I was involved in my last semester. My last semester, I had decided to pledge the Delta Sigma Phi fraternity. I heard out through my good friend Isaiah, who I met through community service. I was able to meet some of his family members in the fraternity and other brothers. They were all very welcoming. So when I first tried to go and rest, at first it was kind of hard to become an official brother, because in order to become a part of the Greek life community, you need to have a grade point average. And in programs like UP, you really don't have a grade point average. So even though I could not become official, they were very welcoming, so I could still hang out with them at events where they were able to include non-official members, and I would grab meals with them. And my second semester, I had decided to rest 2 times, but the answer was I couldn't really pledge due to no grade point average. So the following semester, so they had decided to silence their nationals and alumni association, and there was a petition that went around supporting to become official without a grade point average, and there were even some brothers from out of state that supported. And near the end, I was able to become official as an alumni, and a lot of fraternities and sororities across the country are trying to include people with disabilities so they can have the same experiences to grow and to have those lifelong connections. And I was also part of the Asian Student Association while at Western, and you heard me correctly. No, I am not Asian, but I do love Asian food and Asian culture. I have a lot of friends who are Asian, and in this picture up here, this was at UNC Asco at the Holiday Festival, where you throw powder paint at people, and the tradition was to wear white. There were some other non-Asian students. I was also part of the diversity committee in the International Studies Club, and in the UP program, they encouraged that you participate in the campus activities, because they wanted to see you grow and not just sit in your dorm room all the time. Now, really great is they weren't just there because they had to be. They were there because they wanted to become part of the UP program and wanted the help. And they weren't just students that were studying to become speech language pathologists or special ed nature source pathologists. It was open to any student who wanted to become a part of it. And it was very individualized. You could have craft night, you would have meals with them, work out, do various activities. In Western Carolina, and a couple of them did this. There was this program called Base Camp Coley that I tried one time, where I did kayak throw clinic. I only did it that one time. And you'll read Gymnasium pool, but they had that in case you've ever done any mountain activities. And so a lot of the supports and volunteers I'm still in contact with today. Now, graduation. Before I had come to Western Carolina University, the graduation walk was separate. The UP participants could not walk in the regular graduation, so in fall of 2012, there were petitions going around the campus to support the UP graduation walk, and the Student Government Association made a bill, the UP walk, and so one night, in early November, the whole student body, and even some local alumni, came and said, if the participants couldn't walk, then they wouldn't want to walk at graduation.
Yep.
And so, class of 2013 was the first class to walk at graduation. Granny had to be included and shared all the same experiences with my friends. And even one of my former teachers from elementary school had come from Orlando, Florida, to watch me graduate. Of course, disability history. I know that if I had been born 10, 20 years before 1990, I know that I wouldn't have been able to go to school or really do work, and there really was no celebration success of people with disabilities. I mean, but now we see that even though you may be different, that does not make you any less. Now, why inclusion matters? When people with disabilities are included with their typically developing years, it helps them grow and develop the same way as it would anybody else. If you're only in self-contained settings where there's no positive vibes or supporting your growth, then you're really not going to let them develop the same way as anybody else. And we all learn from our mistakes, and everybody needs to make mistakes that are within reason. Nothing that's like dangerous. Now, here are some pictures. That is my famous inclusion graph used in other slides. People with disabilities want to be included, so that everybody else. Nobody wants to be seen as an outsider in a bubble where you're not with everybody else. My son's that. And down there, that is from one of my first articles at college belonging on campus. Remember that including people in diversity means valuing people, making sure everyone benefits the same with no limitations. Those are civil limits. Of course, there's something that you can success for college. Take advantage if there's an open house opportunity and the person maybe wants to go and see it. And also take some higher classes. And remember, you don't always have to know what you want to study. Take classes of interest and see if it's something that you'd really, really like. Well, of course, living and learning with autism, always unique, totally interesting, sometimes mysterious. I am really good at remembering dates and details of events that most people cannot. So I'm always either at the office or at home, the person that people come to if they need help with remembering. And I'm very good at being able to, if someone gives me a year, that's how long it's been, or since A's. So people who know me know, I must be careful, yeah. Or to warn people, but I've never made fun of anyone. And I am not like Rain Man. I mean, I can remember, but I wouldn't know how many toothpicks there are. And you said all people with autism are different. It's just like anyone. There is no one size fits all in any kind of a disability. And here are just some quotes where, as Dr. Copeland said, different, not less. Remember, perseveration isn't always a bad thing. That's what helps turn interest into careers. And everybody sort of has their own version of perseveration, or that topic that we are all interested in. And of course, different public speaking. My first article was published on ADA 365 in November of 2013, talking about the research on how to make the campus more inclusive. I have done many speakings at different conferences. This is the first keynote about that. I've also spoken at high schools about, I've spoken to students in special ed classes about how there are college options nowadays. And I also, a couple months ago in Chapel Hill, spoke at an equity summit to students that were not in special ed to talk about why it's important to accept all and to include your peers with disabilities. Very interesting. And here are some pictures of my different speakings. Down there, that was in the Capitol building. I was with CAST, an organization that's been around now for more than 4 decades, talking about disabilities. And I met with Congressman Holden, and was featured on C-SPAN, talking about the ABLE Act. You know, it's a tax-free saving account, which will allow people with disabilities to save. You know, before you really could not save a whole lot of money for your life. So this you'll be able to save a ton. And of course, LEN. LEN stands for Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental Disabilities and Related Disorders. And my discipline was self-advocacy. And in this program, there were students in the allied healthcare professions, both students that were working on master's, doctorates, and there were even some postdocs. And there are LENs across the U.S. And UNC, where I went, is one of the first to include self-advocates and family members. So that's been a very, very neat experience. And when I was there, I did get to help with research. And part of my LEN goal is I work with Project STIR, which stands for Steps Towards Independence and Responsibility. This was to teach people with disabilities why it's important to advocate for yourself and to know that you can choose. There's even talk about participating in your own meetings. There's leadership action training. I have done work with the Alliance of Disability Advocates in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I really got to learn more and teach others about disability history. Maybe some of them didn't know I've been institutions, and about how far we've come, but still need to go, so there can be even more opportunities. And most of it was in the Lake County school systems. Of course, goals for moving forward. I do hope to move to Washington, D.C. someday, or Massachusetts, in a big city. And currently I'm writing a book and do hope to have it published eventually someday. That's a work in progress. And I definitely do hope to travel more around abroad and in the U.S. see other areas. And I do hope to maybe see the University of Massachusetts at the Eunice Kennedy Schreiber Research Center, and here are some pictures. This past April, I got to go to Europe with my family, both Paris and London, and also about going to Western Carolina. I had a friend, Beth, who was an exchange student from England. It was very neat then to go and see her there, see some parts. It was also as a case note I got to learn when I was very little. I had a speech pathologist that was from Australia, and I had developed her accent. And so many times people always thought I was either from England or Australia. I always thought it was pretty cool. I do love photography, and I just love documenting moments. Of course, it's still as important. And I don't want to sit around and hope amazing good time, but I want to make them happen. I want to be in control of my own destiny by Drew Barrymore. And that's how I speak for all people with disabilities. People that can, if you serve, have a leadership role in a LEND program, and be allowed to be an advocate liaison, some work for the Association of University Centers on Disabilities. And here are some pictures. That was opened in North Carolina at the Art Gala earlier this year. Of course, those were all my co-workers at the office at a benefit. It was also neat. That was with my friend Sames, who I had gone to Western Carolina with. Springfield was wedding, and to see him and his high school sweetheart then start their lives together. And I had them to another college friend's wedding too. Of course, now, looking forward and back, I'm glad that I was born in 1990, when all of these services and more opportunities were coming into being for people with disabilities. And we still have a long ways to go, but we've come so much farther versus we did in the 1970s and the earlier part of the 1990s. So thank you for your resilience towards paving the way for people with disabilities. We'll continue to still keep on doing all the hard work so there can be more. Of course, and WILA, Innovations Waiver, this is a program that's happening in Raleigh and a couple of other states. This is so people with disabilities want to become entrepreneurs can maybe start their own small business or during their leisure time. That is what this is for. Remember, as important as it is to have someone bag groceries or to clean tables, those should not be the only options for people with disabilities, because there's so much more you can contribute to. In closing, I would like to thank the APS team for inviting me to be your keynote and for all your comment. And up here is my contact info. And if you want to follow more of my story, you can go on to Facebook, Kenneth Kelly Public Speaker and Author. And please feel free to ask me anything. Thank you. Yes.
How many colleges and universities do participate in the UP program?
On the UP program, there's a total of 8 students that are in the UP program. First, there are 4 ones that were there the year before, then 4 new ones come in. It have more, but 8 was the most that we could have, so that way we wouldn't dominate the Western Carolina campus. And there are even some that have more than what Western has.
Is Western Carolina the only school, not just in North Carolina, but nationwide, that offers that type of program?
Now, we were the model demonstration program, but there's also a program at UNC Greensboro, and not too far from here at App State University. And there are even some schools across the state that do have programs similar to ours. We're going to run there some options.